Welcome to my channel. Today is the second video in a series of how to get into BMX or how to get back into BMX if you're an older rider. So I brought two bikes with me. The first bike over here is a 20-inch wheel, and this one is a 22-inch wheel. So if somebody says 22-inch BMX bike, they generally would be talking about a 22-inch wheel, but you have to be careful because another way we measure BMX bikes is by top tube length, and I'll talk about that in a second. But the reason why I brought these two bikes is because I want to explain kind of some differences in how they feel, and if you're just getting back into the sport or you're new to it, or let's say you ride mountain bikes or something like that, and you want to try BMX, there's a huge difference with how a BMX bike feels compared to a mountain bike. BMX bikes are way twitchier, way quicker handling, and you'll eat it faster than anything if you try to just go do the same stuff you do on your mountain bike on a BMX bike. So the approach that I'm taking here is to kind of show you the cautionary side of getting into this and making the right choices right from the get-go. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is these two bikes right here are custom built, meaning I bought the frame and the fork and then put all the parts on it. Actually, this one over here, technically, I had that Fit 22, and then I bought this ditto frame and fork and then rebuilt this with the Fit parts, but I've actually changed parts since then, so I don't even have a lot of the Fit parts on here. I actually bought different wheels when I had the Fit. They're actually the same wheel that was on the Fit, but these are black instead of silver. I updated the stem, updated the handlebars, and then I recently updated the crank. So there really isn't much left on this bike that came from the Fit. The seat post, and I even want a black seat post instead of a silver one, are pretty much the headset, bottom bracket, things like that are pretty much from the Fit, but everything else is new. So that you might as well just consider that custom built. This bike is definitely custom built, with the exception that that front wheel came off of a bike I had a long time ago, and it's just I just have kept it. It still works. It does its thing, but it's kind of beat up, right? Someday I may get a better front wheel, but everything else on this is custom built. So that's probably not the direction you're going to go when you first decide to get into BMX, because neither one of these bikes is cheap. I know people want to see a BMX bike and say, oh, they can't cost that much. Well, this one, if I start adding up everything, is well into like $1,200 or something like that. And then this one's even more. I want to say this one's probably closer to 1,500, but there are some more special parts on this one. This one has a titanium spindle, which bumps the price up quite a bit, and it's got this free coaster, and that's one of the things I'll talk about here in a second about that option. So the price of this one is definitely higher than that one because it's got some more specialty parts on it. So there's a much bigger chance that you're going to go online and find a bike that's a complete. I will do a video on selecting a complete bike in this series, but today won't be it. But the thing I do want to talk about is sizing, right? So this bike is a 20.5-inch top tube, and it's got like about a 13.5-inch chainstay length, maybe a little shorter than that. And usually that's measured when they say slammed with the axle all the way forward. So give or take, but there's not a whole lot of play and adjustment. And so shorter top tube, short rear end, and 20-inch wheel. So this bike is going to be way twitchier, or way squirrelier, whatever you want to call it, less stable, any wording you want to use, than this one over here. This one, the rear chainstay is around the same. I think it's a tad bit longer than that bike, but they did manage to have a pretty compact uh, rear end, and I like that because it gives the front end more pop. But the top tube is longer. It's 21.75, so it's actually quite a bit longer than the top tube on that bike, and then bigger wheels and a slightly taller handlebar, or they might be the same, but they definitely are taller position, because if you look at how that stem is set up versus that one, these bars are going to be a little higher in the front end. So they're definitely very different in how they ride. So if you're like wanting to do the traditionalist thing, there we go with my quotes, and be like, oh, I want pure BMX. Well, 20 inches pure BMX, right? Um, so that's kind of the original wheel size. It's what BMX has been forever. And there are purists out there that just swear by 20-inch wheels, and that's fine, right? And if you're really, an advanced rider, street rider, something like that, and you're flipping your bike around and doing all these tricks, it is going to be easier to do on a smaller wheel bike because it's smaller and more agile and easier to do tricks on. That being said, 22 is a pretty good option also, especially if you're newer at it, because you're going to get a little bit more stability, a little bit more easier to ride in that sense. So going with a 22-inch BMX bike is probably the direction I would push you towards, especially if you're an older rider. If you're a younger rider and you're just getting into BMX, I would stick with a 20-inch and just go that route. But as an older rider, I think having a little bit more stable bike, something that isn't going to just flip out or loop out or lose control on you as quickly. And then down the road, as you develop more skill and get a handle on it, then you can choose to try a 20-inch and it'll be a little easier jump. But if you're going from like a mountain bike or something that you go right to a 20-inch, you just have to be careful. But either way, my next installment of this series, and I'm actually going to do it right after this video because I'm here, is going to be, once you've picked the bike, right? You've chosen your bike. What are you going to start doing? What's the first things to start learning? First things to practice, things like that. That's going to be the third video in this series. And so I'll talk a little bit about that with this bike and this bike, and kind of how they feel different too during that video. So I just wanted to, really stress this idea that you don't want to just jump into this, get a bike, and then go like hit the kids ramp down the street or something like that, or just get at speed and go off a jump, or try bunny hopping a curb without doing a lot of practice and preparation before doing that stuff. Even if you're an older rider and you used to bunny hop curbs all the time, and then you get on a BMX bike, relearn, through baby steps up to that level before you just go and think, oh, I can do what I did when I was a kid. I see so many people get hurt doing that. Even in mountain biking, I see people get hurt. They see what other people do, or they think they're still young and that they're still going to respond and do things like they did when they were younger. And then they just go send it, and they end up eating it and getting hurt. And I've actually seen a few people get hurt enough to where they're just like, nope, I'm not going to do that anymore. So they never even got an opportunity to really experience what BMX was about. One thing I want to mention is, so far, I haven't said anything about BMX racing, right? There are so many different aspects of BMX, and you can choose which one you want to do. But these are like freestyle park bikes, whatever you want to call them. So like great for skate park, great for street riding, and they'd actually do good for dirt jumping too. So those are kind of the categories that you can get into here. But then there's racing, which is kind of a whole nother ball game. I actually recommend for anybody that, maybe they want to get into racing, maybe they buy a race bike. But whether you buy a race bike to begin with or whatever, or a freestyle bike like these, the basics to learn are still going to be the same. The basic principles and basic things and skills you should develop before you go hit the BMX track or the jumps are going to be the same whether you choose to do racing or freestyle. Okay, so that's installment 2. Just really helping you pick a bike, and I will do probably video 4 or 5. I'll talk a little bit about how do you pick a complete bike, and I'll probably do that with my computer, and we'll go look at some websites and look at what options are out there and kind of the price range, because you can get into this for probably, I wouldn't recommend going any lower than $350 or $400. And if you want to get into like nicer bikes, easily $600, $700, $800. You can custom build, but that's something you should do later once you kind of know exactly what you want, because then you custom build and build exactly what you want and what fits you, but you're not going to know that until you're riding for a little bit, right? So there you have it. Really appreciate your support for my channel. Please like and subscribe. Peace.